My Crimson Prince. That's you, because you have...
My airy nomad.
You what?
Airy nomad?
Airy?
Air nomad? Aang? If you're calling me Zuko, you're my Aang.
Okay. Airy nomad.
Because he's an air nomad.
Okay. I was like, airy,
You said-
where is that from? The
air?
country of Aries?
No, the Air Nation.
You broke me.
I did, but that's
we
all right.
almost made it to the end of the season, and here I am fucking broken. Now I need a goddamn podcast wrench to fix my tires of wisdom. So I took a whole week off from the alcohols.
Yeah, I guess you got really sick.
I did, but that's not the story. The story is I've had like just a little bit of whiskey, and we just got started. This is the odd number.
Yeah,
we haven't got to the even number yet.
No, this is the first part, because we're recording 2 sessions. This is the first one.
Yeah.
The drinking has just commenced.
It's just commenced. Speaking of recording, you had a special little recording session.
I did.
Recently.
So if you have been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that we are big fans and friends with Julian Hester, the host of What's in My Head podcast. And so he invited me to join him as we talked about Arnold's Thanksgiving, and we were joined in like conjunction of he and I, which is going to be amazing, with the creator of Hey Arnold, Craig Bartlett. And holy fucking shit, was it amazing.
What? Okay. Tell me some things. What was your expectation going into it, and what was the experience coming out of it?
So my expectation was, hey, I want to come on. I want to talk some Hey Arnold. I'm not going to try and have some fun facts to see if I can get one over the creator. And I just went in. Let me just tell you this. And I actually got to bring this up because I didn't know this. There was an old cult movie called The Adventures of Mark Twain, which was a claymation movie where you have Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer trying to stop Mark Twain from taking an aircraft to Halley's Comet where he's planning on committing suicide.
That's a lot to unpack.
It is a dark movie, and what's really crazy.
How was he going to kill him? Was he going to do
this? Was for kids. He was going to take his aircraft and just run into the comet. Had the comet hit him.
Listen, that's kind of how I want to go.
That's not a bad way to go. You're absolutely right.
With whiskey in my right palm.
And so, as they're trying to navigate this aircraft, like each level is like a different Mark Twain story. And so it's kind of like insightful as far as this is the work that Mark Twain has done, just molded around this really like I had to tell Craig, I was like, hey, you were like so much a part of my childhood, and also why it was scarred. And he, like, as soon as I told him about that, he goes, oh my gosh, that was crazy. Because he was an animator and he was one of the voice actors.
Who did he voice?
He voiced one of the miners in the Frog Tale. I can't remember which one it was.
Okay. When you say miners, like a child or a minor character?
No, like an actual miner in a mine. Because it's a frog, like the Frog of Stone Miner or whatever it's called. I can't remember. But he played like a miner that gets ore from the ground. Oh. But no, he was really part of the animation. That's actually what started his whole animation journey. That was his first job. And then from there, he was actually doing the claymation for Hey Arnold as shorts for like Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse. And then that's when he ended up getting in front of Nickelodeon, where he pitched Hey Arnold. And they're like, well, I love the story, but can we not do claymation? And he goes, I don't fucking care what we do it in. Just give me the job. And so that was really cool. And then also when it was brought up that I was one of the hosts of Whiskeylodeon, he goes, I've heard of that podcast.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, what? He goes, well, Julian told me about it last time, but that sounds like a lot of fun. And
cool.
I was like, oh my gosh.
I bet those nips immediately just ejected themselves right into the microwave.
I was protruding so much milk and lactate.
Then the lactate was probably curdling.
Yes.
All over your belly button.
Well, it did get in there. I had to take a shower afterwards.
My kitty's now fast asleep. I can pour myself a glass. But too many shows on Netflix are trash. It makes me want to pass. I can't figure out what to watch. What am I supposed to do? Let's get drunk and rewatch cartoons when we were little dudes. Whiskeylodeon.
Oh man, dude, I wish you could have been there, but I know that you had a bunch going on. But I'm gonna see if we can get him on the show.
Hey, let's see what we can do.
Yeah. But we do have someone on the show today.
We do.
And I'm super excited.
I'm super excited.
This has been 2 seasons in the making, 2 years in the making.
Indeed.
We have our favorite, America's favorite psychologist. The world's, the universe's.
I was going to say galaxy and get to universe.
Oh,
all
yeah.
right. The multiverses.
The omniverse's favorite psychologist.
The states. Fuck. Always do this. Stupid.
I start strong and I go to the weak one. Ugh. The counties. God damn it. But we have our friend, not just your friend, our friend, Dr. Leah Sharnan. Welcome, Leah.
Hello, boys.
Oh,
you're here.
I'm here. I also
here.
have a lot of pressure right now that I'm the psychologist of the multiverse.
Just the county, remember.
Oh, the state.
Yeah, we'll get to
the county.
It's the county. We ended
okay.
We got to build up.
Yeah.
I'm concerned for myself. But okay, so with those expectations very high. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Now, we have actually come full circle because last time you were here, you sat by Sean. And this time, you can't really see this, listeners, but Dr. Leah is actually sitting right beside me. And Shauna's the one that's all alone.
Well, it's a triangle, and we're literally 3 feet apart. Equidistant. It's an equilateral. It's not one of them fucking scaling, ugly monster triangles. What do you think I am? A fucking evil geometrist?
Geometrist?
Yeah, geometrist. Jeez.
I hope you're not a geometrist if that's what you think the professional name is. But
it is. All right. Just because you're a doctor of the county.
Just because you got a
cool
college degree.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, I think in the last time I was here, you two got into a conflict about whose friend I was.
We did.
And hence we were now talking about spatial proximity, which also apparently equates to a relational intimacy tie.
Honestly, that part, the spatial connection wasn't the issue for me. It was Sean introducing you as his friend.
Yes.
And I was like, bitch, she's my friend too. And that's why I wanted to make sure I said, hey, we're all friends, but she is sitting by me.
Well, you're a messy bitch and you live for drama, so I needed to create some.
I do love the drama.
Mm-hmm.
We could all just hug and hold hands too, y'all.
We can't.
Absolutely.
I'm too fucking far away from you, apparently.
Actually, you could be the nucleus that bonds our atoms. We can hold your hand, and then Sean can hold the other hand. And now
we're stretching out. We're holding hands. And
touch is essential to nervous system regulation.
A very holy bond.
Yes.
Betwixt an agnostic of ex-Mormon and a Jew.
That feels like a terrible joke. An agnostic, an ex-Mormon, and a Jew walking to a bar.
Yes, and they drink whiskey and talk about it on a podcast.
Yes.
Leah, did you prepare a poem for us, I hear?
Oh, yes, I have spoken word. I must disclose in my professional status.
Ooh, I'm getting my snaps ready.
Pop.
Some people really struggle with snapping. That was good. That was effective.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so honestly, y'all, I just want to say that I'm not here in a professional capacity so much as a human who has studied psychology and human behavior for a very long time. So that means that anyone who might be a client or work with me, and if you comment on social media for Whiskeylodeon, that could risk breaching confidentiality. So please refrain from commenting in a way that might indicate that you are currently a client, because we want to protect your privacy. This is just for honestly informative and fun purposes. That this is not a replacement for medical care, diagnosis, or psychotherapy. We are not asking for a testimonial of me either, even though I think I can really easily recruit it from the two of you. But again, not from any clients, and really just wanted to make sure that individuals are aware that this is really just me and my opinions and thoughts and education that I can provide, and not any form of treatment.
Okay. Couple notes.
I feel like we needed like a little
Well, I got to say the content was good. I liked the free verse structure. Not much of a rhyme scheme. But you don't need that ABAB all the time. No iambic potato verse. But I would give it a B plus minus A minus.
I think we're insulting literature right now if we're saying that this was any kind of poetry.
Leia, have you listened to this podcast? We get drunk. We are an insult to nature.
We are.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, it's pretty impressive that people are still listening at this
Whiskeylodeon,
point. Sorry.
nature's drunken curse.
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm so happy to be here with you two because genuinely this is such an easy flow. It's delicious. Non-alcoholic beverages for me at least.
Yes, you had the non-alcohol beverage, but Sean and I.
Yes.
So I'm calling this cocktail the Agni Kai.
Why?
Which we are, I hope this gives you a hint, we are covering Avatar Last Airbender. We are actually doing the psychology of Prince Zuko.
Yes.
So this cocktail requires a 2-ounce pour of rye whiskey, a quarter cup of maple syrup, and a couple dashes of chocolate bitters, but I didn't find chocolate bitters in time, so I have what's called an Oaxacan chocolate tincture, which is pretty fucking delish.
I love it.
And then we have a flaming orange peel, had to soak that in like 151 proof rum, and then let that shit on fire. That was super dope.
I stood by with a fire extinguisher.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we are to code, County.
We lost our intern. Rest in peace, Kevin, too.
Is that it? Every time we get a new intern, his name is Kevin and then the number?
Also, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
How is
And I love
Kevin?
this cocktail, too. Well, he
Obviously,
died.
he's dead.
We just said that.
Wow.
How insensitive can you
For
be?
a psychologist.
Wait, no, y'all. I miss Kevin passed.
Oh, well, see, we had to sack him. I've been watching a lot of
there's a
British
difference
comedy.
between firing and passing.
So,
He got sacked.
Well,
Okay.
Kevin 1 got fired. Kevin 2 passed
yes.
in that fiery blaze when I was lighting the orange peel on fire.
It's how he would have wanted to go.
It is.
Yes.
He was screaming.
Some people want to get hit by
so
Haley's
loudly.
comment. Other people want to get burned.
You're gonna get burned both ways.
As charcoal.
It's which view do you prefer? You know. But
Speaking of burns, there's a pretty significant amount of fire in this series. I don't know.
yes.
So, listeners, this is what you would
Yeah.
call a segue of poor proportion. Yes, we are covering Prince Zuko, who has a scar on his face. A lot of fire.
That's pretty much it. That's
yeah.
all you
Why
need to
do
know.
That's it. We did it,
That's it.
guys.
We did it.
Why did I feel the need to manage the two of you?
Because
It's not going to be successful.
your intuitiveness is keen, and we need to be managed.
Well, I think you just because you're not drinking alcohol like we are, you're taking on this maternal role. Which, by the way, for the non-alcoholic version, the mock version,
It's a
instead
glass of air.
whiskey, an air and barley tea. Barley tea is kind of like a more earthy drink that you can use as a pairing instead of whiskey.
Which earth element was also very intentional in this cocktail, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. It was better than a fucking glass of rocks. We're welcome.
Wait, if
We're
it's
generous
on
hosts.
the rocks. I mean, honestly, Ty, kudos for intentionality with all of the elements in this cocktail.
Oh, shucks.
It's like he
Yeah.
does this on purpose.
Kind of is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For our listeners, believe it or not, he actually gives an ounce of thought into these
did-
cocktails.
Did your child
You know,
help
listeners,
craft this one?
Ty is actually not a fucking moron.
You remember, Ty, you went through a phase where your child was helping make these cocktails for us, and I didn't know it. Is it still a thing?
No, my wife found out and we got in trouble.
Well,
Wait,
I
this
wonder
was
why.
a thing?
No.
Well, he wasn't making the
supposed to.
whiskey.
Wink, wink.
No, he was just handling, the tumblers.
Yeah, so basically, if I was making like a lemonade for like the bourbon or whatever, he would help me with that. Yeah.
He didn't know what
I'm a
didn't know
fan
what
of
the final
child labor.
result
He
would
didn't
be.
know what it was for.
No.
But... Oh, he also helped me with that, the gooberberry, the triple gooberberry sorbet I made.
That was the first
episode of the season, yeah.
Oh, we were just babies then.
Yeah.
Now we're super babies.
Like your
Now we're
baby
super
helping with
babies.
cocktails.
Yeah.
You know what? He got
Full
his
circle.
sorbet and he's happy, and I get it in my cocktail. So
And
I don't
you're
see
happy.
this is not against child labor laws. This is called bonding.
If happiness is the end result, what's the problem?
I mean, honestly, I'm just
if-
probably speaking from envy because I want to be Ty's helper.
I mean,
That's fair.
that's
Yeah,
fair.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for coming to terms with that instead of using sarcasm to cut me down like you were before. And
Somehow,
the face of disgust.
somehow,
Shame.
shame and gratitude just danced on the floor of scorn.
So when I was last here, there was a lot of love and appreciation, and I don't know what's changed, but
I know.
No, we still love you.
It's our
very
love
much.
language has
Yeah.
changed.
I do
The
think,
output is still love. The input is a tinge of sass.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for all of
Kevin
those who,
too just died. Give us a break.
Kevin, you're grieving.
We all grieve
We're
in different
grieving.
ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and I think stages of grief, like their aggression and anger is anger is in there. So if we're talking about sarcasm as a part
the
of
only
that.
way that my sass is being aggressive is if it's cute aggression.
Some cute aggression.
Just want to tear apart those little leggies and
I just
and
want to
roast
take a
them.
little chump out of those cheeks,
I
Sean.
do tell Ziggy I want to roast up his toe beans and make a little toe bean stew, and then chop up his little triangle.
I mean, why not
for
roast his
garnish.
toe beans and have a toe bean coffee?
Confit?
Confit. I said coffee,
Coffee.
but
You said-
confit.
oh, did you say
Roasted-
coffee?
I did. Coffee.
Are you saying coffee?
I am saying coffee with an accent. Coffee.
Like coffee beans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I was
So-
like confit, like
So
Confit.
toe beans, coffee beans. There was the combination.
the double entendre.
Yeah.
That's a triple
The
entendre now.
Ooh.
Have
Sup.
you said this before? Have you practiced that? 'Cause
Yes,
that
but
was-
never recording, so I've
Jeez
been
Louise.
waiting for my moment. Shine.
So the cute aggression thing reminds me of one of my personal favorite children's books, which is Where the Wild Things Are. But you know the line, like, I'll eat you up, I love you so.
Yeah.
So I say this to Rue all the time, and I sometimes just like want to take a little chomp out of him.
What is going on with cute aggression? You can break this down for us, right?
I wish I think I needed to do some research. I don't know.
It's confusing, right?
I think I'm gonna go with like this, like, okay, I'm gonna pull some BS right now, but so co-regulation, right? That refers to how
Okay.
well we can regulate with our loved ones, and like there's something that happens for our nervous system when we just feel like chemistry, or we feel like a dopamine release. And there is also a neurotransmitter called oxytocin that is released when we're with people or animals that we really, really love. And so that oxytocin, I would imagine, is just like released, and we get so excited or protective, or like that nurturance really comes out when we see that like cute aggression, not only with animals we love, but if we really care about animals in general. Like, I'm going to go with oxytocin as the reason.
See, that makes sense to me because I use oxytocin in my fabric softener when I put the blanket around Ziggy, and so the oxytocin smell gets me aggressive.
Well, now I'm really curious. Like, I wonder if there's a study done that, because you have mantis and how like the woman mantis will chop off the head or cut off the head of the male mantis after having sex. Is that just a violent form of cute aggression?
With finality.
With finality, it's the final cute aggression.
Or is it passive aggressive?
I mean,
I don't know if
the
there's anything passive
relationship.
about chopping off someone's head with your
That's
teeth.
true. Because well,
How passive can that be?
okay, valid. I think I was thinking about this in terms of like the escalation, right? Like that there was so much anger, hate, whatever, love. Like they've got to be murdered as opposed to talking it out.
I mean, are you like assuming of all women manti that this is how they live? Like, I feel like this is a huge
I
generalization
think they're
you're
called
making.
womanti.
Woman tie.
Also, I'm assuming apparently that they can communicate on a higher.
Oh, I
order.
know they have. They're like dolphins.
I mean, they're
of the
talking with
grass.
their bodies. I mean,
Yeah.
Mhm.
You never sat there and just like stared at a mantis and been like, yo, I feel like we're connecting right now.
I have the urge to sing "Let's Talk About Sex," but I'm not going to.
We'll add it in post.
let's talk about sex for us. Let's talk about. No, that's the wrong song.
See, this is
To our listeners, for the record, I did not sing it. So
You didn't
Sean
have to. You didn't have
explicitly
to.
asked us to not sing, and it's very difficult for
Ty's
Ty and
gateway
myself.
Okay.
drug is someone breathing.
First off, motherfucker, I just found out that you have been cutting out all the times that I've sung for our lovely listeners.
You shut your sweet mouth. I do not fuck your mother. I make sweet love to her.
And then murder her.
With my words.
You mother lover.
It's strictly platonic. It's poetry. It's like the
It's
poem Laerage.
mutually
It's free verse.
beneficial.
No rhyme scheme.
Oh, I've missed this.
Yes. You know what else I've missed? I think I'm going to rewatch the show.
Yeah.
I really,
oh my gosh.
I really, really want to, and I think I'm going to now.
Yeah. So we are breaking down the psychology of Prince Zuko and going through just the overall emotions of his redemption arc. Oh my gosh. It brought tears to my eyes. I wanted to cry.
There's a 26-minute video out there. If you've already seen the show, it just highlights his redemption arc. And I was watching it this week, and I was like, why am I crying?
Yeah.
I was like, this is making me, I was like, because I kind of forgot about some of the beats. It's been a minute since and I was like, why am I crying right now? And that's a dumb question because it's amazing. It hits home in so many ways. And Leia, it's my understanding that this is kind of your first watch through and experience with the show, and I just want to get your thoughts on it.
So many thoughts. Yes. So it is my first. I confess I did not watch this as a little one. It was more of a Rugrats and Hey Arnold kind of watcher. And so that's why I spoke about those earlier. But the show itself, so I will say it started off a slow burn for me. But then once we started getting into the character like progression and depth, and I'm literally watching there, right, with a psychologist perspective. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is trauma and radical acceptance and attachment work and like so many concepts that are very rich in the storyline that I think we can all relate to as humans and in our lived experiences. And so that's something why I felt so passionate about talking to all of us and hearing different perspectives of you have the nostalgia of watching it as kids and also as we're watching it as adults, like how that maps our, like it calls to our pasts and it calls to our development. And anyways, it has a lot of richness to it. And I really appreciate y'all forcing me to watch it. I had no choice. This was not consensual, but genuinely amazing. So yeah. How did it feel to like rewatch this too? I'm curious.
Well, and you know, Ty and I have talked about this. Like Ty has a deeper experience or a longer experience.
So I started watching this when it first came out, and
that's
then
a better
watched
way
it
of saying
again.
it than I did. I'm an idiot.
No. What?
Stupid.
Sean, stop saying that shit about my friend.
That was the ghost of Kevin too.
Kevin, go shut up.
I mean, Kevin has some reasons to be upset.
It was an accident. Get over yourself.
Yeah, I only accidentally lit you on fire on purpose.
I was slow with the fire extinguisher.
Kevin is on fire.
This world is on fire.
So I had one. Sean apparently hates it when we sing, but I love it. It's just who I am.
Ty, real quick, when did the show actually get produced? Like, I don't know how old.
So the show came out in 2003.
Okay.
So I would have been about 15.
Okay.
So I was kind of on the older end, but I was into anime, so this was kind of like pulling me back into Nickelodeon because I was like, oh hey, now I have an American version of anime that I could enjoy, and I did it. One of the things that I loved about anime, and only particular ones, was being able to like talk to the viewer like they're not an idiot, like going into deeper conversations. And so while I didn't understand the contextual nature of the trauma that Prince Zuko was going through, just the whole, like, I wasn't just a straight bad guy. There was actually complexity to me. And now we're having this rich story being told. Mm-hmm. And so then it came out again on Netflix, and that kind of brought it back. I was like, oh my goodness, I want to watch this again. Try to get my son to watch it. Mixed review. He just wasn't into it. I also think he was just too young. But then we had Daniel who wanted to be on the show. He goes, hey, I want to cover Avatar Last Airbender. And so Sean was like, oh, fuck, now I got to watch it. And then it was so much joy. So when Sean texts me, he goes, what the fuck, bloodbending?
Yeah.
And it brought so much joy. I was like, oh, he got to this place. And you didn't go there because you just watched episodes we gave you.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of rich storytelling in there outside of just Prince Zuko. So by all means, if you enjoyed it, I'd love for you to go back. But Netflix is also doing a live adaptation coming out in February of 2022. No, 2024. Sorry, February 22nd, 2024. Yes. So at that point, watching it again, just it flooded me with the memories. But then also because I've been through therapy, I had that context of there's a release for me as well.
That's really powerful, right? Like, to be able to see so there's a term in therapy that we love to talk about, it, which is a dialectical stance. And so it's this idea that there are seemingly opposite experiences that exist at the same time. So Zuko in particular has this like good and bad, so to speak, in him, or these poles of like, and we can later on attach that to trauma. So I wouldn't even say there was like good and bad, but it's this
those
like,
who have lost their way and those who have found their way.
yeah, like multiple experiences within
Damn,
ourselves.
Iroh, get it.
Mm-hmm. So it's a both and, it's not an either or. And so we can be working through and trying to be the best person that we can be and also still make mistakes, for example. And I think that really came out as I was watching Zuko's character development. And I can imagine that really calls to people because we all make mistakes. We all feel conflict at different times, especially when we're talking about honoring relationships that are really important to us. And so we could attach a ton of meaning to like the relational development for all these characters and then for yourself, what you were just speaking to, Ty. And so appreciate you sharing that you've been through that therapeutic work as well to have that insight and reflection too. So I could talk for days. I'll stop.
No, that's why you're here. We want to hear
days.
more. Yes.
We could split this up into multiple episodes.
Seasons, if you will.
Seasons, yes.
Yes. How many Kevins will we go through?
Well, before
Rest
we
in
go, last time we talked about the show, I had some fun facts. I got more fun facts. So
Fire them off.
initially, Zuko's one of the last characters to be created for the show. Initially, they wanted a character outside of the Fire Lord because they're like, we can't have someone fighting from the throne. So they initially had like a captain or some adult going after kids. And then it's like, we can't have an adult keep getting his ass kicked by kids. And then also going after kids. So that's when they created Zuko, the prince. So that way we'd have a child, and I say child loosely because he was a teenager going after teenagers. And that just made it more personal because now it's less about, oh, adults are crazy, scary, and more like, bitch, you're just like me. What are you doing?
Right. Relatability.
This reminds me of like the classic kind of bully arc, like right when a bully is maybe trying to exert power and control over someone else, and
Because he has no control in his life.
exactly like projection of something else is going on.
An external locus of control.
There's the both and again. There's the dialectical stance. I will say this like 50,000 times, and my clients hear me say it so often. So keep going, Ty.
So
I used to think it was diabolical instead of dialectic. I always get those words mixed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, therapy is very diabolical because we'll just like blow your mind.
Oh, shit.
damn.
Sounds violent. Sign me up.
Well, speaking of violent, Avatar is derived from the Sanskrit word which literally means those who descended.
Oh.
Which I think was very fair, especially going to the Avatar state.
Perfect.
And then the symbols for the 4 nations written on the Avatar world map have literal meanings in Chinese calligraphy. For example, the symbol of water is joined with another that means virtue. For the one for earth, it's strong. For fire, it's fierce. And for air, it's peaceful.
Are those 4 symbols also in astrology like the same, you know how there's, what am I trying to say?
What are you trying to say?
Well, like, okay, I'm an Aquarius.
Okay.
And like disclosure, like, I think astrology is interesting. I don't really care. I think there's some fun, like, ooh, that's neat. I don't have a card or a hand in that, but I'm an Aquarius, and that makes me it's not a water sign, I'm an air sign.
Okay.
So are there...
I'm Pisces. I'm water.
I'm Taurus. I'm land.
Okay, so there's
And then
some...
Kevin was fire because he's on fire.
You're good. Me too, why not?
Oh no, I've got into the podcast and here I am and I can't close my throat. It's open to all the viruses. Oh no. Oh, we've got to the Fire Nation and it's so dusty here. I wish I could go back to the Air Kingdom.
Wait, there is a volcanic eruption where the air quality is so shitty that... Wait, Ty, you're going to know the character names
Is this
better,
in
but,
real
like,
life?
No, she's talking about
one
the
of the
show.
episodes.
I was like, no.
I brought him. We haven't survived
Why
a
are we
volcanic
doing a
eruption
podcast?
together. We're not in a
Is it
volcanic.
Pompeii?
Jeez Louise. Oh, Pompeii is really cool to visit. I recommend it. But
Are you talking about the volcanic eruption where you have Avatar Roku and Lord Sozin fighting?
Thank you, Ty.
Okay.
Thank you. I was just trying to bring us back again. Remember that
You can't
thing
bring
where...
us back from Dusty Firetown.
Okay, so Ty, you were talking
The equivalent of, so as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted.
What are our objectives? Okay, I'm going to get this thought out, and then I will.
Okay.
You two run.
I believe in you. Here you go.
Thank you so much. Okay, when you were talking about elements, and Sean, you were talking about whether or not how much credit do we put into zodiacs and elements and all of that. But I think at the core of it, there are some themes that people connect with, right? Like, I think about loyalty or Ty. What were
So we had virtue, strong, fierce, and peaceful.
Yeah, it's super interesting, right? Because these are core values that can also be culturally integrated and guide our choices and guide what we believe in the world. And so I think we can see those values in different cultures. And I love that cultural component of the show. And as you spoke to grounded in anime, and I think about like Chinese culture and what that means to bring these virtues into a kid's show. Like these values are... okay, like how do we model this for kids too? I don't know. Just think it's an interesting value conversation.
Well, that I want to take it in a direction because Sean, you were talking about astrology, so I want to kind of take both your points together.
Well, okay, so
And
I
I'm
will say I took it to
curious-
astrology only because I was thinking of like signs, like
right, but I want to
not
take
the M.
it-
Night Shyamalan movie, Signs, also not to be confused with the M. Night Shyamalan, I put in quotes, movie Avatar Last Airbender, but the
So
Earth
I'm going to
signs.
take your conversation. I'm going to take it to her direction. So you had talked about how.
I'm better.
Yes,
Oh,
you are.
Damn. I mean, true. It's still rude to say.
You're the new host.
So you talked about how like culturally you'll have these things aside of values, and it influences a whole culture's demeanor and almost personality. Does that kind of work in the same way as astrology, where you have people like, oh, hey, this is kind of giving me a value, and I'm now going to reenact it, almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, almost. But is that kind of the correlation that you're talking about, or is this something deeper?
You're looking at me like I'm about to just like ruin what brilliance he just said. But I'm not.
No,
not
I'm loving
gonna-
this conversation. I think astrology, okay, personally, it feels very general in terms sometimes, like it could fit to a lot of people. So, for example, Earth sign for me also indicates that we're very grounded and pragmatic and value. Like these are things I've been told over time, or my mom would love to say it more negatively, like I was very stubborn and strong-willed. Not completely inaccurate, but we could maybe see that
When is strong-willed a negative?
when you're told that you're stubborn and like
You have such managerial skills.
okay, we'll unpack that later. But,
Wow!
but
Look at you with all of your empathy and compassion. Like,
y'all,
When
if
has
you're-
that been a
I'm,
bad
I'm
thing?
just saying, sometimes being told that you're stubborn is not the best. It's a tone thing. Okay, let
but
me
I
come
think
back.
we're talking about biases here,
We're talking about biases.
A little bit. Sort of.
Maybe also values again.
Yeah.
The thing I was going to come back to, though, is that there are different values that maybe we all are different qualities that we could all see a little bit in ourselves. And so zodiacs and astrological signs, like we could all see maybe a little bit in that on ourselves. And then as we hear that, maybe it is like, oh, okay, I need to step more into maybe if I'm a strong voice and a leader and also stubborn, can I create balance? How do I look at that? Like, and coming back to maybe it is a little self-fulfilling, but we've been told this a lot in our lives, so it becomes ingrained perhaps.
It's kind of understanding what the core of the definition of what we're talking about is, and then what's the near friend and what's the near enemy, and how do we work with both?
Yeah. Dialectical thinking again.
Yeah.
Like opposite.
Diabolical thinking.
It's a both.
Sean.
It's a both and,
Satan.
right? We are both. Maybe I'm both stubborn and also have some flexibility at times, right? And so I think about that.
Or
Mhm.
you're always stubborn when you're dealing with bullshit. I love you, Mama Sharnon. But you also are flexible when you don't feel like your opinion is being devalued.
Yes. And I will say that's probably developed over time. And these are probably messages that I received more so as a teen, which let's face it, teens can be a little opinionated. Leia
That
teen.
was such
yeah.
the nicest way to describe it.
Because
Like I had to describe it as like, hey, I know I traumatized you as a teenager, but guess what? I traumatized myself. You weren't special.
Do we need to unpack that more?
I'm in therapy for that already.
Okay.
That's on our bingo board.
It's time to talk about therapy again.
Or do we need to unpack it?
That's right.
Yeah.
But I love this topic so much, right? Because I also am very much so a trauma therapist at my core and my heart, and look at our work through attachments and relationships and all that jazz, right? And that's why you had me on the show today, right? Like, because we were going to get into this. What are the messages that we internalize? Is some of this self-fulfilling prophecy? Is it really? And then how do we develop our own clear voice to determine a path that feels congruent and authentic? And that is something that blew my mind about the show, is the level of authenticity that was really encouraged for all of these characters. Like, I mean, and they're a bunch of teens in context, right?
Yeah.
But they're literally trying to think about, okay, how do we save lives? How do we prevent pain? How do we prevent human suffering? At the core of that is such a beautiful thing that you see developed throughout the story.
Well, talking about the story, we have basically a breakdown. So we had the first few episodes we wanted you to watch, just kind of see, hey, this is Zuko's introduction. This is kind of the base of the story, just so you had some context. And so after those first 3 stories where you just kind of see who is this person wanting to regain his honor, what came to mind at first?
Okay, I already want it. So, sorry. I'm trying not to bore everybody with too much theory, but so much theory is coming up to me. So there's this concept of relational frame theory that I really, really love. And bear with me 1 second, listeners, because I know that I'm getting nerdy.
No, we like it nerdy.
Okay, I'm so nerdy. And I mean this in a very positive way. So
don't apologize.
thank you. Okay, so relational frame theory means that we have learned language and terms and concepts over time and in all of our lives. So for example, if I were to hold up my, non-alcoholic whiskey cup, I don't know, what do you call it? A tumbler? Tumbler. There
A
you go.
low ball, but yes.
Low ball?
Yeah, this is a low ball glass. High ball would be when it's taller. And
Or the general term, rocks glass.
yeah, rocks glass.
Y'all are teaching me. I love it. So
We're teaching each other.
right?
This is a classroom setting where there's
This
no
is
teacher,
a
no student.
collaboration.
There's but a universe of the need to learn
And understand.
and love
And listen.
And peace.
And kindness.
and Satan.
Satan needs some peace and kindness too.
He was a free thinker.
Sean has brought up diabolical how many times? And now Satan. Oh, I should tell y'all, I wore my grandmother's fur coat and put on some devil horns for Halloween this year, and it was a little like.
What are you trying to say about your grandmother?
No, it's just a fur coat that it lends its way very well to a satanic kind of costume. Okay, coming back. So,
All right,
I don't
Grandma
know.
Sharnon, just letting you know.
Fuck off, Grandma.
so in the session notes, you will see a picture of me in Halloween, and you'll see it, you'll understand. Okay, coming back.
Yes.
I've lost my way. What was I saying?
Well, the whole show is about losing and finding your
Yes.
way, as we've
It's
discovered.
about getting lost and finding your way.
Yeah.
So we initially were talking about your theories you were crafting after
Relational
the
frame
introduction.
theory.
Yes.
Thank you. Jeez Louise. Okay. So we have learned things over the time. Like I learned that this was a tumbler. Y'all learned that this is a great example. A high ball or a low ball.
Low ball is short.
Yes.
High ball is tall.
Right. So we have different language for the same cup. Right? That to me is so cool to learn about each other, that we're calling it different things, but it's the same object that we're talking about. So we've learned how to relate language. And to me, this is really interesting about like Zuko and Aang and everyone. Like,
I am going to say it's Zuko. I don't want people coming after you. Again, she didn't watch the whole series, just select episodes.
thank you for looking after me. There is caring in this relationship. So, right, like I think that's such an interesting thing of how have they learned how to relate to the world, how we honor values, how it looks differently. So, for example, for Zuko, respect and honor looked like I have to honor my father. Right? And it changes over time, that meaning of respect and honor. And so you asked me about the initial episodes, and that was really interesting to me from the perspective of this is a youth really trying to get,
Validation.
acceptance, validation from father figure. We can talk about attachment figures down the road, and that they're just trying to figure out like, who am I in this world and identity, and there's so much richness that starts opening up.
And we almost get to the point where his whole identity is to be an extension of his father, to do as he commands. Like it's almost like he doesn't even matter. He just got to do what his dad says because that's who he is just that extension.
Well, and what did y'all think about the lessons that are like these messages that are really reinforced at the beginning? So, for example, one of the things that stood out to me was this idea of suffering is a teacher. Like, I think about the battle.
That was such a boomer thing to say. I was like, oh my gosh. And it is something that I personally have gone through where it was suffering was my teacher.
You've gone through that.
Yes. Not to the extent where I had like my face blown off, but like to be punished for not understanding. It's like, well, you're going to learn today. And I might have shared this before, but not with you. I was in kindergarten, and so it was just my dad at the time. And so every Friday he would give us money for the after school program to get some ice cream. And I went to the vending machine and picked out this ice cream that had like Spider-Man on it. I was like, ooh, that's going to be so cool and delicious. And I got it and I opened it up. I took a lick. I was like, ooh, I actually don't like that. And so I put it back into the vending machine thinking that's just, hey, maybe someone else will have it. I didn't understand that you just put it in the trash. But it ended up melting and made this huge mess. And my teacher told my dad about it. And my dad, being super pissed, was like, I can't believe you embarrassed me like that. And I got spanked for it. And I remember that idea of what did I do that was so wrong? I didn't understand. But it was like I'm being punished for something I don't understand. And so that suffering became that teacher of, well, I can't piss him off. I can't like dishonor him because then I will suffer more.
I think when I think of suffering as a teacher, I think of it more as a like life itself as being the teacher. And I think, because I agree, if you know, it's funny because I guess that came from... If
someone tries to do the suffering implementation...
Teaching a lesson, I'm not talking about that. But when it comes to like learning a hard lesson through trauma, for example, or just something that might happen to you or for you, really, is what kind of ends up happening. I think of suffering as a teacher as something quite positive. And I'm not saying sitting here and punishing somebody.
So I think we're looking at two different things.
I think we are. And that's why I think it can have this duality where like it just depends on how you look at it.
Relational frame theory.
Ah, yes.
We've learned
dialectal conversations,
right?
Satan.
Multiple experiences. We've learned different associations with suffering over time. Like, I can tell you my association with suffering as a psychologist. I think about this in terms of like, we can have pain, but then when we start really like rejecting it or putting it under the rug or ignoring it, that creates suffering. That's how I think about it, is actually avoidance or stifling. And so that's how I think about suffering. So this is interesting that this has brought up multiple different memories or associations. You hear it as a learning experience in life, Sean. I hear it as can we increase like acceptance and approaching our suffering? Like, this is very rich in conversation, right? And yeah, I love that.
That's why I wanted you on the show.
Yes. So I brought that up though in the context of it was the tie. You can fill in the details a little bit more, but the battle of Zuko with his father for
the Agni Kai.
Speaking kind of out of turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Carried away.
So in this scene, this is actually, I believe this is episode 12, The Storm of season 1. So this is where we're getting Zuko's backstory.
And Ty, just before you even get into it, was this the first time your heart broke for Zuko?
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Honestly. Because you sit there and hear this guy who's like, oh, I'm trying to get my family approval. And you're like, well, you're kind of being a dick about it. And then you find out how much he's been dicked on. Right. You're like, that makes sense. Because we get the whole story.
You can get dicked off, but the minute you get dicked on, you
it's sad. You want to like give him a hug.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you got dicked on.
Sorry about the dick on your shoulder. You got a dick on your shoulder?
So
okay, I gotta jump in. So here's the thing.
Of course you do.
Jump in.
This is even an interesting concept that dick is associated with like you've been fucked with, you've been screwed with, right? Like that dick is even associated in this context of like a bad thing. And I know we want to get into a little bit of like masculinity in the conversation and down the road, but it's striking me that like the body part we're talking about is like you've been shit on is dicked over, like, or dicked down, or like, I don't know, like
Dick down's a whole different thing. Oh my gosh.
I realized that as I said it, and I was like, maybe they'll gloss over it, but I knew better.
We like our glossy donuts.
Yes.
But we do not gloss over dicks.
I am a professional. Continue.
You did your poetry. You did your poem. It's fine.
So if you want to get dick down, that is up to you. We don't shame here, but we don't encourage you to dick on people.
If you want to earthbend.
Yeah. So in this whole thing, they are in the middle of this war. It's like 100-year-long war. And they're sitting there, generals are sitting there like, hey, let's take these new people, these new trainees. We'll put them in the way to take all the fire, and then we'll come in and kill everyone else. And at that point, Zuko, who for the first time is in this meeting, because he wants to be by his father and wants to impress him, was like, the fuck are you doing? You can't dick on these soldiers. They love the Fire Kingdom. They're trying to serve the kingdom. Why are you sacrificing them needlessly? And at that point, the generals just kind of look like, you done fucked up. Because they know they're not going to get shit. They're not going to get any smoke, I should say. I guess that's a firebending term for it. They're not going to get any smoke. But because he outspoken, even though he was right, Fire Lord Ozai was like, you have disgraced me, and now we're going to have to fight it out. I challenge you to an Agni Kai. And he's like, Father, I don't want to fight you. And he goes, suffering's going to be your teacher, and I'm going to be the dealer. I'm going to be its hand. And he goes, Father, I can't raise my hand to you. You're my father. And the King Ozai didn't give a fuck. Just went ahead and just blasted his face. Like, actually, the way it came to is he actually took his hand, which was, of course, burning with fire, and just put it on his face. It wasn't like he shot the fire at him. He literally took his burning hand and burned his face, holding his face. It was gruesome. And what's really interesting is you have everyone else, even his sister, and you have General Zhao. They're all looking and happy. They are so excited they're seeing this.
Except for
Iroh.
Yeah.
Uncle Iroh turns away.
We haven't talked about Iroh yet.
No, we haven't.
And we can't talk about Zuko without talking about Iroh.
This is true. And we're getting there because initially during this particular episode, you have all the soldiers like, man, Zuko's a dick. And then like you have Uncle Iroh's like, well, he's been dicked on. Let me tell you a story.
He says that.
He says that. And they're like, oh shit. And they want to give him a hug after that. And at this point, he literally sees the helmsman almost falling, and he goes up to go grab him, able to catch him out of air who's falling, and then like saves him. And then they see the Avatar flying on Appa, and he's like,
another first happens here.
And he goes, we need to get to a safe place. These people matter more.
Let's
and you kind of see, it's like, wow, that was a really like cool thing to do. I know you've been dicked on, and now you're showing that there's more to you.
Yeah, it opens up his dimensions that we didn't.
He is no longer just an empty, blind extension of his father. There's now something of a morality and personality coming to him.
No, I mean, Leia, so knowing that you're going to come to an episode and we're going to talk about this character, I mean, you had to know, I mean, he wasn't going to be one-dimensional, but were you worried? Was there any part of you where just like, who is this guy who's just freaking angry all the time?
So I'll say at the start, yes, right? Where it's just the fire people,
the firebenders,
Fire Nation, yeah,
Fire Nation, thank you, just torching everything, right? And there's just, I mean, is genocide like too strong a term? Like it's so targeted.
Genocidal colonizers,
yeah,
America,
it's wiping
call it
out
what it is.
Entire groups of people with no thought of the consequence and generational trauma that has happened because it's been happening for so, 100 years?
It's 100 years going during that time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That is generations of trauma of living through how do we survive? And so, yes, at the beginning I was like, no, this character is the worst. I'm not going to have any, like, I'm just going to feel hatred towards him. And I will say, realizing this context of the battle with his father, being challenged, the relationship with his uncle, and then like putting in a context his age is really important, right?
Yeah.
That he is still really just trying to figure out how to experience love and belonging and connection in this world.
And those important development years,
absolutely.
too.
Absolutely.
Because I think what's interesting, and I'd love to get more of your thoughts on this. What I find super interesting is that he never really had the validation of his father. His father was all about his daughter, who was a prodigy, and he was just there. So already he is feeling neglected. He wants to have that connection. But then after that battle, I feel like things take a change for the worse, because now it's no longer I want the approval of my father. It's I have lost this, and now I've lost my identity, and all I can do is be this extension.
And for context, I'm going to add to that in a second, but when did Zuko,
You got it.
Every
Yeah,
time.
you nailed it. Stuck the landing.
Mom was out of the picture at what point in his life?
During the right before the Agni Kai. So basically before
It was right before.
his father
Yeah.
became Fire Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And we can actually go into that later.
Almost in tandem, but yeah, like right before, technically.
So basically, she disappeared after Fire Lord Ozai becomes Fire Lord. And then while he's in this war, Prince Zuko was like, well, I want to be by my father, fucks up, and then the Agni Kai happens and he's banished.
Right.
Yep. So we really haven't gotten into attachment theory work yet.
No, let's do it.
Let's dive in.
Okay.
And while we do that, can you pass me the cocktail
I
cup?
never thought you'd ask.
Mm. And Sean gleefully grabs the cup that has my concoction.
It's for all of our sensory experiences. It's a beautiful amber. Oh,
There's
It looks-
ice in here.
It actually, like, if you just look at it, it looks like Coke.
It does not taste like Coke. It is
the soda,
delicious.
not the white powder.
Not the cane. Not the cane. Not the canes.
Not
all
no
right?
canes here.
Cocaine.
Yes. Okay. So, here's the thing. Every day, all day, I talk to my colleagues about attachment theory, and like we just nod knowingly, like it's just a shared language. So, can I ask y'all, when I say attachment theory, what comes to mind as we're talking about it?
Attachment theory
Quiz.
that comes to mind is
How we relate to one another.
The unhealthy ways that we connect. So, like, I understand, like, I am anxious preoccupied, where I'm so anxious about people leaving me that I'm preoccupied of taking care of other people's needs versus my own.
Can I ask you something though?
Absolutely.
Is it the unhealthy ways that we relate to each other, or just or how we attach to each other?
I'm
Because
adamantly pointing to Sean's point.
I wonder if it's
Well-
just it can be one, it can be the other, but it can be both.
But the way I say it's unhealthy is because it comes from a place of insecure attachment. If you have a secure
But
attachment,
that's one corner.
you usually don't
but that's
go
one
to this
realm.
negative corner. So if I look at it
That's
as
like saying a knife is bad. Depends on how you use it.
So these are the negative
Sorry, Uncle.
aspects
I think I went to
of-
bed listening to Uncle Iroh. But I don't think not to
So it's not to
steamroll
say
you,
that,
but
hey, you are negatively attaching to other people. It's like you are attaching to these people due to the negative neglect you've had.
but that is
But that's not what you said, Ty. Well, when you're fucking Jesus, and no.
wait.
Daniel Kemp.
That was I was like, where was that? I was like, I've heard
That
this.
was Daniel
When you're
Kemp. We had him on the last
when
episode.
you're fucking Jesus. Not fornicating with Jesus. Not
Yes, when
not
you,
banging
when
the
you
Lord.
were Jesus, you can have this high
Yeah.
horse. And...
Yeah. But Ty and I can sit here and do a little pee-pee contest, or Leia, you can interject immediately and solve this riddle. Fucking Jesus. I will not bang my Lord and Savior. I will not bang him so. I will not fuck my
follow
Jesus
you.
tonight, nor heaven, nor hand, nor toe.
Where did that come from? I can't. Okay.
I'm the Lord.
I feel flush in the cheeks because I'm laughing so hard.
it's
That
so
was
dusty.
oh my gosh. Sean, let's unpack that later. And anyway,
Or just leave it in the suitcase.
yeah. I'm not billing this. Okay, so coming back.
Can we pretend that was never said?
It's literally recorded.
Evidence. Okay. Okay. So, thank you both for sharing your perspectives on your understanding of attachment theory. I really appreciated that discourse because I think it's a concept that comes up a lot in pop psychology. And I think it's a really important, I could go into the history and how the research really blossomed from looking at infants and their reactions to parental caregivers way back in the day in very sterile, like psychology labs. But the important thing is that it gave us really rich data of how do we relate as adults as well, that there tends to be a consistent theme of how even infants relate to their primary caregivers and then how we relate to primary relationships as adults. Okay, so what I mean by primary caregivers, yes, historically and within the research, that was probably a parent of mother, father figure. However, we know so much more now that significant attachment figures come in all shapes and forms. Like I grew up with a single mother, didn't have a father. Other important attachment figures in my life, my grandfather was huge. Like anytime I bring him up, I'm going to get tearful because he was such an important part of my life. And so there are people that we find relationship with that we look to as role models. And they teach us about the world and we start internalizing, or we want to seek their approval, or we want to feel emotional safety from them. So attachment is a very rich concept. And Ty, it was interesting to me that it came from a place of, I forgot exactly the word you used.
Anxious, preoccupied.
Anxious, preoccupied. So it's one type of attachment. And Sean, you were gently kind of saying, hey, isn't it maybe bigger than that? Is it only maybe an anxiety provoking? Can it be secure? Can it be different frames for types of different attachment styles? Okay, I said a lot. I'm not going to go yet into the attachment styles, but attachment, relationships, how we live and look at relationships in the world form from a very early age because of the people we've been around as youth. And that's really significant, I think, for this show.
Well, going back to this show, we have someone outside of Zuko's father. We have Uncle Iroh. But it feels like at this point, at least where we are now, Uncle Iroh isn't seen as the figure, as bonding. What was the term you used?
Attachment figure or
attachment
secure
figure.
attachment?
Secure attachment figure. He's more like a mentor, just making sure Zuko's okay. So at what point is it like, well, hey, he's kind of there as the attachment figure, but Zuko doesn't really show attachment until later on. That just, even if the person's there, if there's no secure attachment, you aren't benefiting from that attachment figure.
Mm-hmm. Right, because Zuko is still in this framework of dad is the person I want to receive approval from.
Daddy?
There are daddy issues. I have daddy issues.
Zuko has daddy issues.
God damn it, Ty. It's because like you just like wide. Because you just go full doe eye and look at me and say,
"Daddy."
Yeah, and I'm like, what are you? What's happening right now? And why?
I'm the love nanny, not your daddy.
Why are one of my nipples doing a lack?
Get into curdles.
Curdles. Yeah, curdle Sanders. Oh, the whiskey. Oh, the whiskey.
I forgot how anything is off, like on the table for a topic.
Pretty
here.
much anything.
Oh, yeah.
I do not endorse. No, I don't know.
We don't want to alienate.
Correct.
We want
Thank you
to embrace.
for
we are
equal
very inclusive here.
Yes, equal opportunist psychopaths.
Okay, so daddy issues. We did talk a little bit about the points we were going to make before recording. I don't think we did talk about daddy issues being part of it, but we've come to this place, right? Yeah. So yes, Zuko is at a point in his life of development where he was looking to his dad as the place of acceptance and approval, and
because he was the one that neglected that approval. So now he's like, well, now I got to try and prove it to him.
Yes. And also, I think this could be an interesting time to bring in the idea of in-group, out-group bias of the groups of people that we don't necessarily know or affiliate with in our community can feel very unknown or very threatening. And when we are given messages of our in-group, if we have to act and behave a certain way, we look to those rules for social referencing, right? How do we behave? How do we act? Especially as youth. So it's kind of all comes together when we're talking about bias and prejudice. And I think how Zuko was initially supporting Dad's initiatives, right? Yeah. It's making a lot of sense. Okay, I'll pause here.
Well, I guess because you're saying so, like, it kind of creates this closed-minded framework where it's almost like, I think about like when you define yourself as anything, as an ist or an ism, anytime you put these kind of suffix on.
Once you deal with an absolute, you're a Sith.
Which is a very absolute statement, and with Star Wars. Anyway, so, but when you, and I'm not saying there's an inherently, it's good or bad to do that. Like if someone wants to call themselves something that they relate to, or that's their lifestyle, or whatever it may be, it's like, okay, that's fine. But like, are you think about the fence? Are you building a fence with that too? Because when you do that, anything that challenges that is going to be cause discomfort or maybe even pain
it's going
or
to
suffering.
be seen as an intruder.
Yeah, so you have to think about how you define certain things and how much of that you want to bring into yourself.
Which at the beginning, Ty, you asked me how I was feeling towards Zuko Zuko. I know.
You almost had it. That's okay.
How about Prince Z?
Yeah, Princey.
Princey.
Feel
The
like
prince
I
formerly
should
known as
just
Z.
get it, but
Well, it's. I think I did the same thing.
thank you.
I mean, there are a couple. There's 4 letters, and they're really
kept
easy
saying,
to
like,
rearrange.
Prince Zeke.
If I bring up Fireball Z, that's a different show, right? I'm kidding.
Well-
I'm kidding.
just like Danny Zuko. There you go.
Yes. Thank you. So Ty, at the beginning of our conversation, you asked me how I felt at the initial episodes, and especially towards Zuko and like, well, you know, his character. And I was like, heck no, this is not somebody I'm going to like. But as we're progressing and thinking about, like, again, seeking for approval, having a father figure that is really like the only way that you're going to get my approval is you play by my rules. It is very critical and frankly abusive. And you see this context developed over time. It's like, oh, this is how they validated this idea of we can attack other nations and how that violence was kind of justified in a way.
Well, it kind of goes a little deeper than that because at the time, no one had even seen or heard of the Avatar in like 2 decades almost. So at this point, his father said, you can regain your honor once you get the Avatar, was very much a fool's errand. He was like, I don't want to deal with you ever again. Like, this was not a possibility of, hey, if you do this, this will make it right. This was, I don't give a fuck. Go find the Avatar. That's like, go get the gutter snipes. There's no such thing as snipes.
Go pick me up a bag of F-stops.
Yeah. That was a camera joke.
Yeah, it's so niche.
It's a very
Our
niche
one
audience.
listener
So for the photographer over
is
there
like,
who's
I
now
get that.
laughing,
I get that. Someone sent me to do that one time.
You're welcome.
Sorry, Kevin.
I looked at Sean with a furrowed brow like I didn't know what he was saying.
Well, I
so
looked
thank
at you with a furlowed brow because it ain't getting paid for that bad joke.
Well,
I
I'm
just
going to
told
look
you.
with the fur highbrow because I'm just happy y'all are here.
Is that another glass?
Yes.
Highball?
A fur highbrow ball.
Highbrow. Because it's lowbrow. Wait, what is furloughed? Oh, for high. Yeah, for highbrow. I don't know what's happening anymore.
I know what happens.
I have lost my
You
connection
broke
with
too.
reality.
Let me lend you the wrench that you lent me earlier. Here's a fucking podcast screwdriver for you. Let's get in there.
Doctor, could you fix me?
How do our listeners stay on track?
We don't know that they do.
If you don't need market research.
We can't afford it.
Okay. It's growth opportunity. All right, come back.
Baby, come back. So here we have Fire Lord Ozai setting him on a full terror. I was like, I'm not going to deal with this kid ever again. You're banished until you can find the Avatar. So Zuko has such a high hope. He's like, I got to keep searching because if I fail, I'll never be able to get back to my dad. And so when he finally sees the Avatar, he goes, oh, this is it. I'm finally going to see him. And we get that that look. And we actually get to a point where this actually wasn't part of your homework. I'm just going to give you some context before we get to the next part you watched.
My inner people pleaser is glad to hear that I didn't fail.
You didn't fail.
Okay.
I'm going to give you give you that context. So at the end of season 1, we have the Fire Nations going after the Northern Water Tribe. And so at this point, Zuko has basically been told, hey, General Zhao's now after the Avatar. You can sit back. But he's not going to take that lying down. No, he isn't a bottom. He's a top. And so he actually sneaks into the Northern Water Tribe and is actually trying to find... He actually successfully captures Aang. Aang is sitting there in the Avatar state. He's actually meditating so he can go into the spirit realm to try and figure out how to solve this issue. And so at this point... Zuko is just grabbing Aang while he's basically spirits out of his body.
And it's cold,
It is cold.
up there.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets
That's important.
Yes. And it gets to the point where he's literally got to hide in a cave because he can't really go anywhere. He doesn't know where to go. He just caught the Avatar and now he doesn't know what to do. So then Aang's friends come and actually rescue him. And Zuko has to basically sulk back. But then he sees Admiral Zhao. And he goes, well, I'm going to fuck this bitch up. And they fight. And so in this fight, you have Zhao, who gets caught by Aang, who's now embodying the water spirit, dragging Zhao down forever, like killing a spirit animal that caused the moon to like turn red. Like it basically killed the moon spirit.
Ooh.
Yeah, it got deep.
It gets so, yeah. That's where everything inside of me just broke.
Yeah.
I was like, how is this
the way it's set
possible?
up is that waterbenders pull their power from the moon. As soon as you kill the moon spirits, they have now lost their power. And so it ended up having to be someone else, just for context. The princess of that Northern Water Tribe sacrifices herself because she was blessed by the moon spirit to become the new moon.
Sokka's first love.
Yes. So at this point, he has now failed in that mission. And now he's like, I don't know what to do from here. But he's now back with Iroh. So we are now coming to the point where we come back with the Avatar States, which is season 2, episode 1. This is where Zuko is with his uncle and they run into his sister Azula.
Mm-hmm.
And so at first she's like, hey, you guys are going to be welcome home. And he immediately doesn't, like, all blinders up. He goes, oh, I get to be with dad again. Whereas Uncle Iroh is like, this smells fishy as fuck. And then it turns out to be the case. Zula's there is to bring him and put him in jail.
Mm-hmm.
And when he realized that he's been tricked, that the whole thing about his father wanting to be with him was a lie, he immediately cut ties. He and his uncle cut off their top knot and are like, no more. We're not going to deal with the Fire Nation any longer.
Isn't that so heartbreaking?
It is heartbreaking.
Right? Like, he so wants to be back with dad and be accepted and be in that role. And when he realizes, like, that betrayal is still so present and he's so rejected, it's a hard, I'm turning away from this, right?
Yeah, that was kind of like the final straw where it's like, look, you burned me once, shame on you. Burned me twice, shame on me. Well, now you can go.
Burn me thrice, go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Just like that. At that point, I feel like especially when you're dealing with neglect, that anger of being neglected is kind of almost like a healthy turn where you're no longer going to be dicked on because you're like, I'm sick of it. I'm done. And if I can't appease you, go fuck yourself.
Isn't there an element of self-respect here, though, too? Right? Like, I am done. My boundaries are up. And I know.
Probably an unknown self-respect, though.
I agree.
Right?
I don't think it's explicit yet, but I do think like that. I am done. We're going to go off. And,
I'm no longer your extension. But now he's got to figure out who he is.
Correct.
And that's
what
kind
he
of
wants.
a journey. Yeah. Thank you, Iroh.
I mean, yeah, he does say that.
So at this point, is there a stage during neglect and childhood trauma where that anger is then turned outward instead of inward? So instead of hating yourself, which Zuko still does, but he's now having a little bit of that self-respect where it's like, I'm no longer going to let you shit on me like that. Like, is that like a stepping stone into overcoming that neglect? Where it's like, well, you know what? I don't need your approval anymore.
Yeah. So some themes that we see really often in trauma and the way that the brain is kind of programming, how do we create safety, relational safety, who can I trust, right? So the themes that are really important are related to control. How do we have choice? Trust, and that's trust both in our own decisions and trust in others. Esteem and worth. So what am I worth as a person starts maybe developing as we're healing, and therefore boundaries start getting more clarified. And I think that's starting here. And so with choice for Zuko, it's what are my options? Do I have to only stick with dad and Fire Nation, or can I go to, right, like a different option and path?
Yeah.
So I'm hearing this as like a starting to expand. Okay, my choices aren't just this one place for approval, right? But I think that esteem, respect, and power and control and choice start kind of starting to open up for him in terms of seeing, oh, here's some pathways I could go down, which is not just focused on dad. And I think that becomes really an opening chapter for him. These are themes that we see really often in research of like when we feel powerless, when we feel like we don't have control, when we don't have high esteem and belief in our own ability for change, we feel even more trapped. And this is really a turning point, in my opinion.
Okay, you talk about trust.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question. Like when you so Zuko loses trust in his father and that whole path, right?
Yeah.
Well, when you lose trust like that, you may lose trust in other things that may kind of trickle down.
It gets generalized,
and then you kind of say, we've heard the whole like the only person I can trust is myself.
Yes.
But what is really happening there?
With the idea of I can only trust myself?
Yeah, what is that?
Great question.
What is that trust there? Because it's maybe not fully trust. It could manifest into something else. Like what is that?
I have a thought I want to share because that's kind of what I went through. And so this is going to be a little more personal. I'll try to not go into too much detail, but at some point I stopped seeing my dad as a safe space. And in consequence of that, because I viewed God like I viewed my dad, I lost that feeling of safety with God. And so it was very much, I remember praying, I'm like, hey God, don't worry about me. I know there's other people who need you more. And in my mind, I rationalized this as me just being like, hey, I'm just doing the right thing. I'm standing up for myself so that God can take care of other people, because apparently God's love is finite. But it turns out it was because I didn't trust him to keep me safe. And so a lot of times the whole trusting yourself is not about like you actually trust yourself. It's that you can't be hurt by anyone but yourself whenever you're not allowing other people in. So you can take Ted Lasso, actually, and explore this. It's like, look, I didn't share this with you, and that was me missing out an opportunity to connect with y'all. So I prevented myself from connecting with other people because I kept this in, because I was scared of getting hurt if I opened up again.
It's a type of overfunctioning. Like you're overfunctioning and over-relying on self. And then it's how do we build another core trauma theme is how do we build more intimacy? And it's intimacy of relational intimacy as well, right? Like we were share of ourselves, or we can trust that other members of our community will get our backs, that it's not just the primary attachment figure that we've been told should be the person of approval, which this develops really throughout the relationships, I think, of the show too, right? Where this jumps ahead, but everyone who comes together to create peace, they start really testing boundaries of trust. And can we actually work together? And what does intimacy look like in relationship?
Well, you'll still stay with me even if I'm not at my best.
Yes. Yeah. That's acceptance, right? That's like the unconditional acceptance. We've seen each other in our hardest of times, and you can still hold that space for me. And that's so powerful. Yeah.
Ooh, we went there, guys.
We went there.
And we're not done yet.
We knew we would.
And thank you for sharing, Ty, because you highlighted something really important of like, it becomes sometimes generalized of, okay, if I can't trust this one person, can I trust others in my system? Can I trust God? Can I trust like what in this world and meaning of life? Because the brain goes to this place of like really trying to protect ourselves.
It's like a distrust projection.
Yeah. It overgeneralizes in a way, right? And so we're trying to figure out.
You try to make it an absolute and you deal into those absolutes.
It's easier for the brain to process. So in trauma processing, we come back to, okay, the actual pain point, and that's what we really need to focus on to help interrupt that generalized process.
And I think it's going to take him a little bit, Zuko, to figure out what that really is. There's you know exactly what moment I'm talking about, but I think we're still a few beats away.
We're a few beats away.
Okay.
So at this point, you have Uncle Iroh and Zuko traveling to the Earth Kingdom, and we get to a point where Zuko's still mad, and he's not quite listening to his uncle. His uncle's like, "Hey, like you need to like take a look. Like, you say this is your destiny. Is it your destiny, or is the destiny given to you by your father? And just kind of challenging that aspect. It's like, let me challenge what you believe, and you see it from this aspect too. And
is Iroh the most consistent character throughout the whole show?
Yes, but I also think Iroh is consistent because his learning through suffering, not at the hands of someone else, just in life teaching, had already happened. So just so you have some context, Iroh was known as the Dragon of the West. He was a general in the Fire Nation's army, and he was actually fighting an Earth Kingdom. Why am I spacing on the name of the Earth Kingdom? Ba Sing Se.
Ba Sing Se.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so at this point, his son ends up dying in the war, and he loses heart. And at that point, I feel like that's when he starts seeing it's like, maybe this war isn't the whole grand, we're just trying to share our ideals with the nation or with the world. And he starts looking reflectively inward. And I think that kind of changes how Iroh goes. So I feel like Iroh is consistent because he's already been through that journey. And now he's just reaping how suffering has taught him. So at this point, we have Zuko, who...
Well, and he's more than just a sounding board.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, which is important because he easily could have just been that
sure,
wise character in the background, but so much more.
He's so
and you should know that at the way in, that dude gets so fucking jacked.
Oh my gosh, yes.
There's a whole Prison Break thing.
We'll go into details with you when it gets there.
Offline. It's too hot for this show.
So at this next point, we get to the crossroads of destiny. So this is where Uncle Iroh is in there telling us, like, look, again, that is season 2, episode 10. Oh no, we're jumping ahead. No, we got to go to episode 6, Leg Lao Guy. This is where they are in the Earth Kingdom, and Avatar and his gang have come in as well. Appa's been kidnapped. Now, to give you some context, he was actually kidnapped outside of the Earth Kingdom. He was kidnapped in the desert and sold to people in the Earth Kingdom. Whole different thing. We actually covered part of that last time we covered the Airbender, Avatar Last Airbender. And so at this point, we have Aang trying to find his bison, his best friend. Mm-hmm. And Zuko ends up fighting him instead. And he's like, I'm going to use you to trap the Avatar. And that's when Uncle Iroh's there. What are you doing? It's like, I need to ask you the same thing. What are you doing? And that's when he challenges him. It's like, who are you and what do you want? And at this point, he gets confused. He doesn't know. He ends up freeing Appa and then runs away. And at this point, this is when he gets sick. And his uncle's telling him, was like, look, the reason why you're sick is because you did something that was so outside of your normal nature that you believed that now your mind and your body are fighting at war with itself.
I love that.
Yeah.
Me too.
I don't know how you feel about this, Leia, but like the idea that your mind, I mean, like the mind body, like the physicality and the mentality, like it's all interconnected. Like you can
100%.
make yourself sick through what happens in your mind and your spirit or soul or whatever you want to believe.
Yeah, mind-body connection, right? And I mean, this is so interesting when you look into research on, for example, gut health and neurotransmitters. Like the stomach has been called the second brain, that there are neurotransmitters that are developed in our stomachs that help with our mood regulation, with executive functioning and clarity of thinking. In addition to, think about how much our body responds to emotion, right? Like what our posture changes, what our temperature changes, what our heart rate is. And so that connection is really powerful, especially when we're experiencing something that has maybe a high appraisal for threat, which is what you were just speaking to, that Zuko was doing something that felt so out of character that there was a high threat of, what does that mean about me as a person, right? What does that mean about how I want to exist in the world? And so I think that is such a powerful theme that is connected. And I have to keep reminding myself, we were watching like a kid's show here. It's wild, right? Like this is amazing. So keep going. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm just glad that I have someone to share as an adult first watch through.
Oh,
because really it was like a year ago, ish, when I first watched it. So like, it's nice to have that connection.
I didn't realize it was just this last year as well for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just so good, and I love it so much now that it's like it's one of those shows that it's easy to remember a lot of these moments or like relive them, and
because it's so
be
fresh
so
in the
passionate
mind.
about them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So now we get to the crossroads of destiny. this is where we have Zuko, who has now been kidnapped by his sister and is trapped underground with Katara. And at this point, he's already like, the Fire Nation's full of shit. And Katara is starting to see the more human side, the suffering side of Zuko. And at this point, she's like, hey, I have special, like, Northern Tribe water that can possibly heal your scar. Like, this is basically like, let me remove the pain that you've been holding on so long. But that gets interrupted because Aang and Iroh come in, and they're both hugging the other person while Aang and Zuko are still giving each other dirty looks. And at this point, we still don't know what's going to happen because you have Azula come in as like, you know what, brother? I thought of everything, but I can't do this without you. And if you help me take the Avatar, like, Father will accept you with open arms. And she actually says it in a way that is believable. It's not like she's trying to trick him anymore. It was one of those things where she absolutely was being cunning and conniving, but she was being honest when she said, look, you can make whatever choice you want, but I promise you, if you help me take the Avatar, we can regain your honor and Father will take you back.
I do want to comment just on that Katara moment where she's trying to heal this external wound. How it reminds me that we're still watching a show where, like, these are kids thinking, hey, you know what, if I can heal that will solve everything inside that you're feeling. And it's like, it's such a sweet, tender moment, knowing that, like, whether she can or can't isn't important.
Yeah.
It's just a nice gesture where you see, like, these two, like, in quotes, like, enemies that we've, you know, been watching on screen kind of bond for a second, and she's willing to, like, use this thing that she has limited resource up to help with this thing that won't solve any problems. And I just felt like that was such a sweet, tender moment that it's so fleeting because of what just happens afterwards.
Because I mean, it is absolutely fleeting, but it's one of those things where she got to see the human side of him. She thinks, if I can make you human again, because she's basically equating his scar with the struggle and the enemy. She even says that. I was like, look, for the longest time when I thought about the enemy, it was your face. He goes, yeah, my fucking scar. Thanks for that, bitch. He goes, no. Like, you know what I mean, fucking asshole. And he goes, I know. But at
the
this
writing
point,
in the show is just perfect.
is so well done.
Good, yeah.
And at this point, she sees the humanity, and that's why she almost reaches out, because she's just naturally nurturing. And she's like, hey, I have this thing, and if I can heal you and that scar, like, she equates the pain he's held on for so long again with his eye. And then we have Azula come in, and he makes the decision. He's like, I want to fight with my sister. It's that last minute switch of, fuck, if I have a chance of having my family again, I have to take it.
It's a loaded question, but Leia, what do you make of all of that whole sequence?
Sorry, I'm laughing because it is a lot, right?
It's a lot.
This might indirectly answer it, but I've been thinking a lot in this conversation about the power of perspective taking to generate empathy, right? So Katara sees Zuko. Jeez Louise, Leia. Promise I'm not this bad with names. No, I can't promise that. Okay. So, but she sees him and she sees, like, oh my goodness, this is a human in front of me. And to have that level of perspective and empathy, and it's starting to challenge her views of him. I mean, I talk to my clients all the time about that in terms of, for example, family conflict, or when we're in conflict with other people, how much are we stuck and really trapped in, like, our own interpretations? And this is a really beautiful moment between the two of them. And when I was really seeing that connection of humanity, common humanity is an amazing skill as well, of, like, how are we all maybe connected together? I think about people who experience depression and, like, they're feeling so alone, and to remember, or trauma, like, we are not the only ones who are moving through pain, that there are other people who are moving through pain. How can we build connection? So you really see it in this moment between the two of them. And Ty, you had a great point about, like, Zuko is in this tension point of when like his uncle and family and sister comes in, right? Like, oh, I could still be approved by my family, which is this core belief system that's been there forever. And also,
it's been the source of his core wound.
100%, right? And also, he is starting to see perspective of other people. He is starting to see the humanity within Katara and Aang. And it's a really amazing, I think, point in the show, and perspective taking, empathy, humanity all really come together in themes as I was watching this too. Pause. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Sean? I don't know.
And scene.
Yes. I just want to start saying pause after every time I stop talking.
Okay, so
Pause.
This is, as a random aside, this is a joke between myself and my employees as
I was hoping you say myself and myself.
With me and myself.
No, I genuinely, so as an aside, many moons ago I was informed of how much I talk. And I get it. Like,
I mean, we all talk. What do you mean? How much you talk?
I can sometimes really bring it back to myself or talk. This is a whole other thing. But the point is, I've tried to be really aware of for how long have I been speaking, and then I'll say I'll pause here. And it's become like this adaptive phrase that I just say to say, hey, someone else jump in. I've said what I needed to say.
Is that just how you like attach to other people? Your attachment style is you want to talk and make people think that you're likable, and then you're like, oh wait,
that's a jump.
Do you want to?
That's a reach.
I think it's my way to say there's space for other people around me.
Do you want to unpack that, Doctor?
Who?
You.
I've been wanting to say that for all my life.
Oh my gosh. So yes, you will hear me say and pause very often. Oh God, I prayed for someone like you. Sean, please keep that in.
Sean needs another drink.
You just filled my drink. Earlier, Ty, you sweet man, you were talking, and you reach over to grab your glass, and it had been empty, and you just like clockwork just kept going. But I saw you look at your glass as you continued talking, and you put it back down in your cup holder, and your 90% of your body was fine except for that wrist and that hand was the saddest little like there's nothing in here. The emptiness. Yeah, we're getting pretty we're getting close to a couple things. We're getting close to the end of this drink and probably the end of this podcast episode because I think we're
now in season 3.
Yeah.
Am I another 2-parter again?
I mean, maybe.
No, let's
we'll
keep going.
see.
Let's
We'll
keep
see.
going.
We just gotta take a look.
Yeah,
We'll
let's
see.
keep going.
Maybe this if you are, this is already the second part.
Yeah.
So the listener will see what I did there.
You said listener.
Listener.
You did it.
Ah, that's the end of that's the end. That's the end of Whiskeylodeon. Roll credits. You can't see credits on stupid.
The mind is as vast as the ever-expanding void of the cosmos. And as it grows, more and more questions are bound to arise. Who am I in this swirling pool of galactic creation? For what purpose does my existence serve the universe? Why do I instinctively slap Ty when he accidentally hurts my plants?
I'm just a little baby plant-a-loon.
Navigating the extending external nothing can be daunting, but that's why it's important to have help. And there's no one better to help than the Omniverse's favorite therapist, Doctor. We're sorry, but due to legal constraints, Earth is prohibited from working with the Omniversal therapist. We regret to inform you that there will be no answers to who you are, your universal purpose, or why you slapped your friend. Please refrain from searching for the Omniversal therapist, or legal recourse will be made.
This is the Whiskeylodeon finale. star or 2-star or 1-star review. Then you can say bye to Whiskeylodeon for now. Bye.
So we're now in season 3, and really, we have this whole journey where you have Zuko, who's with his father. He's feeling accepted. He's getting the credit for the Avatar. Turns out it's because Azula didn't think she actually killed him, and she wanted to throw him against it if it turns out he's actually not dead. But he's being hailed as a hero by his people, where he was banished before. His father's actually talking to him and giving him responsibilities. Now, it's not like he's like, oh, welcome home, son. It's just like, all right, you can now do stuff for me again. It's not like a warm and comfort thing. But he betrayed his uncle, and his uncle is now like in jail. And so at this point, this is where Sean was talking about how, like, while Iroh's in jail, he's working out. He's getting jacked. Like, for Riz.
I think I remember him doing one-arm pull-ups while eating an apple with the other, or reading a book with the other, or
yeah, I think it was eating an apple. I don't remember him having a book, but it could have been.
He's reading a book and eating an apple and still doing pull-ups.
And then doing pull-ups from his legs.
His legs are tied up too. It was his dick.
Sean.
Remember, we don't like getting dicked on. We're okay with getting dicked down, or like doing dick ups.
Dick ups.
Dick ups.
When I'm drunk, I have a dick ups.
But at this point, like, we have Zuko, who doesn't understand. Like, he's like, I'm still angry. I don't feel like I did the right thing. I'm so confused at what's right and wrong. And so we get to the point where he's given a hidden message, turns out from his uncle, and is telling him the real story. This is going to be season 3, episode 6, The Avatar and the Fire Lord. So this is where Zuko is learning about Sozin and his relationship with Avatar Roku. And so we get the whole thing of them like being best friends. And then Roku is the Avatar, and Sozin becomes the Fire Lord. And Sozin has this whole thing of like, I feel like I need to conquer the world because we are literally so far ahead of everyone else. We need to get them up. And the only way I can see that doing is if we take over. And Rogo's like, fuck that, that's dumb. That's not balanced. That's not what I'm about. But also, that's fucking dumb. And so Sozin doesn't go with it. He's like, fine, you're my friend. I'll trust you. But then there's a volcano, and Sozin lives on a volcano. Not Sozin,
I love that
Roku.
segue. You're just like, oh, yeah, but then there's a volcano.
Yeah, and Roku lives apparently on this volcano. And while he's trying to like get it to stop and clear it off, Sozin comes riding on his dragon. So apparently he and Roku have dragons, and he's sitting there helping him trying to end it. But then Roku starts coughing. He's choking on the fumes. And at that point, that's when Sozin sees his chance. He goes, if I can get rid of you, then I can go with my plan. He never let it go. And so at this point, he leaves Avatar Roku to die in this volcano. And so at this point, Zuko is like, I fucking know this history. Why the fuck did you share this with me? And Iroh tells her, like, look, you know the history of your father's grandfather, of Fire Lord Sozin. But your mom's grandfather, that was Avatar Roku. You are related to Avatar Roku. And that was the epitome of conflict of what's inside him. He has his mother's side and his father's side still at war. And then not only that, it gives him the opportunity of, I'm not just the Fire Lord's son. I'm also the Avatar's descendant.
Right.
And so at that point, he was like, look, Zuko, you have a chance of ending the conflict. Like, you are the only one who could end the conflict that your grandfather or great-grandfathers had over 100 years ago. You're the only one. That is your destiny, is to find a resolution to that conflict. Doesn't throw anything else in his way. I was like, you're supposed to do this. You're not doing this right. He's like, this is what you were destined to do. And at that point, he's now dealing with those conflicts. But shortly after, we have the Day of Black Sun. This is the day that the solar eclipse. This is the solar eclipse. So this is where firebenders lose their fire powers. And so at that point, you have beefed up, jacked up Iroh breaking out of prison. And we now have Zuko confronting his father. And he tells him the truth. It's like, look, I wasn't the one that killed the Avatar. It was Azula. And he was like, well, why would she lie about that? Why would the fuck would she give you the honor? It was probably because he's not dead yet. He goes, what? What? And it's actually Mark Hamill voicing Avatar. I don't know if you knew that.
No way.
Yeah, that was
it's
Mark
Mark
Hamill. Like, I remember he was like, yeah.
That's my mind being blown. No fucking way. Okay, continue.
Yes.
Yep, sorry.
So at that
And
point,
now you're like, I'm going to watch the rest of the show.
Well, I mean, I did push it to the end.
Of course it is Mark
like,
Hamill, right? It's like
Yeah.
anything menacing is
if
just
you
he
start
nails it.
from episode 4, Kyoshi's Island, and just go on, you'll be fine. And you'll be like, all right, I'm good.
It's fucking
It's Mark Hamill.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's Mark
All
Hamill.
right, I'm impressed.
Surprise.
Continue. Yeah.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Also, it makes sense in context. I just didn't know. Okay, continue.
So at this point, Zuko's now confronting his dad. He goes, you're a shit dad. And like,
Yes.
I just need you to know.
Yeah.
Because like, Ozai's like, get out of my face. Get out of here, you traitor. He goes, no, you're going to sit there and you're going to listen to me.
Which isn't that an important part of like attachment trauma? You're a shit parent. Maybe we don't explicitly say it, but at some point, like coming to terms with like, oh my gosh, you are not here for me as a parent. Like you were crap in some ways. And
Yeah.
so I just think that's a super powerful moment. Okay, keep going.
For
Ty.
sure.
Yep.
And at this point, he's now telling his dad off. It's like, look, you're a shit dad. You're wrong. And then I'm going to join the Avatar and you're going to lose.
He goes from sitting down to standing up to sitting back down. So for a moment, you actually think that evil Mark Hamill is kind of listening to his son for a second.
But he's not. He's
Second.
being a shit dad still.
Yeah.
He's being a Vader. But at that point, he is getting ready to leave. Zuko's getting ready to leave. And then Zuko, or his father's like, if you were a man, you'd stay here and fight me after this Black Sun's done. And he's like, I don't need to fight you. That's not my destiny. That's the Avatar's. My destiny is to help him. And he's getting ready to leave. And that's when Ozai's like, don't you want to hear how your mother disappeared? And that catches his attention because his mom was the nurturing one. His mom was the, not affection, the,
Unconditional love or
I mean, yes, the unconditional love. I'm talking about your, not affection style,
secure attachment.
attachment style.
Yep.
So his attachment style was to his mom. That was his healthy attachment.
Yeah.
So as soon
What's
as
your affection style? I like chocolate.
I like biting people because I'm a
I think
cute
he said
aggression
affection,
style.
not
I
confection.
like biting people's necks off after I fuck them.
I actually really
My
love this
name's
as a dating
Mantis.
question. What's your confection style?
What's your confection style?
dark chocolate, please? Thank you. Okay, wait, sorry.
I like the cupcakes with the confetti.
a little.
I
Can I get some-
cake with the whipped cream frosting.
Can I get a vegan brown butter?
Braun Bretta, Greta Gerwig
a
Bretta,
vegan brown butter?
Greta Gerwig? I mean, she's
Gre-
amazing.
yeah.
So, all right.
Greta Gerwig Braun Bretta.
Brown Bretta. That sounds like you want to date like a vegan black man. Like that's like
Okay, so mom is a confection style. Keep going.
Hold on, and I think we can step back because I see your head kind of nodding, and I also see it shaking.
She's like,
And-
don't talk to me.
And when we talk about your head nodding and your head shaking, we're talking about duality here, right?
Yeah.
We're talking
Diabolical.
about diabolical,
Dialectic.
and that is Satan,
Yes.
boys and girls. That is Satan
That is
inside of
Satan
you,
inside of you.
and sometimes Satan's going to be deep inside of you.
And it's
So glad that professionally you are not in my office.
Oh gosh, don't let me in.
No, I won't
Yeah.
ever.
yeah,
That's
like
fair.
we don't want to like confess that Sean's been dicked down by Satan and
Dicked up.
Dicked up, yeah.
So convincing.
Wait,
That was
thought-
fake. That was
that was
No.
impressive. Oh my gosh. So Sean, I do believe that Sean was reading nonverbals very aptly, but Ty just hasn't paused.
Well, he doesn't
At
usually
all.
pause unless we pause him.
Right. I'm the only one who's learned to pause. So
okay.
I'm
Therapist, thank you for rubbing that in.
No, it's because we had this whole thing about Leia, like it got feedback about pausing. Okay, regardless.
Well, because I'm telling the
Keep
story,
going,
and I'm
keep
like,
going.
let me get to a finish point, and then y'all can share your thoughts. And you're like, no, I'm going to share it
It's about
now,
time.
and that's fine.
Satan.
Satan getting dicked up. Down. Dick down? You're getting dicked up. He's dicking down. I don't know.
That's
man.
right. No, you
Okay,
got
that's
it.
right. That's it. Okay.
Geometry.
Omelets?
Geometryist.
We did it. We're full circle.
See, listeners, that's called a callback.
That was punny as hell.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ty, would you like to have the speaking ground?
Sure. I will hold the speaking stick now. Thank you.
Pause. No, keep going.
Secured.
Pause.
So at this point, we find out what really happened. So because Ozai made fun of Uncle Iroh for losing his son, basically said, well, then put me in charge. Because Iroh was, I guess, the oldest one. He was the one destined for the throne. And so Fire Lord Azul was like, you know what? Suffering's going to be your teacher. You need to kill your own son.
Mm.
And at that point, he was going to fucking do it. He even said, I was going to fucking do it. But your mom wanted to save you. So she came up with a plan. She goes, look, I will poison and kill the Fire Lord so that you can become the Fire Lord instead. But you have to protect our son. And so at that point, that's what happens. And so she gets banished for killing the Fire Lord. And now he's stuck with the father who's never really affectionate anyway. And there's actually an additional story I will share afterwards. It kind of goes into what happened there.
Wow.
So I'll share that later. But we get to now the final arc. This is Sozin's Comet. It's like a 3-episode arc. It's the season finale. And at this point, going back to the Black Sun, I forgot. As soon as Ozai figures out that he now has his powers again, he tries to send lightning at his son to kill him. And Zuko learned how to redirect lightning from Uncle Iroh. He goes, I'm going to go find Uncle Iroh because he's the one that's been my father. He's the one I need to apologize to. And he's able to redirect that lightning and shoot Mark Hamill right in the face, really in the chest, and sends him flying. And it was a beautiful moment where he
Not
was
the first
like,
time Mark Hamill's been struck by lightning.
Just
No,
the
it's
fact
not.
that it's Mark Hamill, I want to rewatch it in that context and mind blown. Continue. Okay. Yeah.
So at that point, he's finally like severed ties with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I shouldn't even say he finally severed.
I think he has acceptance that his dad is not going to change.
Well, there's some more details that I'll go into after the series. So I say he cut off ties at this time.
Okay.
And so at this point, he now finds his uncle. And he prostrates himself. He is apologizing. Like, look, Uncle, I am so ashamed. I am so sorry for leaving your side, for doubting you, for not being who you wanted me to be. I know you're angry at me. And at that point, that's when Uncle Iroh like speeds across the room and just pulls him in an embrace.
Cute aggression hugs.
Cute aggression hug. It's like, I was never angry. I was sad because I thought you had lost your way.
So I'm starting to tear up for those who cannot see me because goodness, y'all should know, every time I hear about a dad or father figure being that beautifully present, and Ty, this goes to you too. This is a shout out to dads who are present and who are unconditionally loving, because frankly, I didn't fucking have that. And so that scene got me, right? Where it's this unconditional love and it's this like relief of like he is embodying every potential that he saw for Zoku, right? And like
Zuko, but yes.
Roku and Zuko. I see it.
No, I have
well,
no excuse.
Because here's the thing.
It's beautiful.
Like, even Zuko admits, like, I did lose my way, but I found it.
Yeah, it's
and
beautiful.
What I really love about that moment, that was a moment where he stood there, he's like, I'm so ashamed, I did this, that, and this, and I made you angry, I betrayed your trust. And Iroh lets him know, like, you didn't, like, you're fine. I'm not mad at you. Mm-mm. And it's almost like let him know, it's like, you have self-inflicted these wounds. Let it be known, I'm not angry at you.
Because he's so used to someone being angry at him or having retaliation or a negative consequence and honestly abusive and violent consequences going to happen, right? That's been conditioned. So it's a beautiful moment. Keep going, Ty.
I mean, he's confused almost because he even says like, how did you forgive me so quickly?
Yeah.
His dad said,
right?
Mm-hmm.
He was like, I don't understand.
It's heartbreaking to hear. It's like, how is that even possible? And like, obviously it is, but it's like his first experience with true forgiveness.
So this brings up the topic too of, I think, like, for how do we come to forgiveness? are, and also I think in some ways like a really beautiful model of male relationships.
Yeah,
That
because like you have. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to speak to like that show vulnerability, that show like I will accept you with your flaws, and I will accept you in your time when you are maybe more vulnerable and not perceived as the strongest or the winner. And I think that's a really important message that's happening here that's well before its time.
Well, I think it was a beautiful message on what masculinity is, because you have the toxic version of masculinity with those guys, like it's all about power. And then with Zuko and Iroh, it's very much of your strength relies in your vulnerability. Your strength relies in your connection. Iroh's always been about balance. It's like you can learn from other nations and utilize that for yourself. You can draw strength from outside instead of relying only on yourself.
This makes me think about, I have a dear friend who has a psychologist as well, male, just for context, who challenges the concept of toxic masculinity being more so restrictive masculinity. And so it's this idea of men are, or male identifying humans are only restricted to certain identifying qualities of what masculinity is. So it limits the parameters of what that means. And if that's toxicity, if that's restrictive, however we term it. But I think this is a message and conversation we've been talking a lot more about recently in the context of the show. This was like, well, that's why I said it's well before its time. And I think this is just such a beautiful moment with the uncle and like acceptance and what forgiveness and, hey, you are still an accomplished, amazing human, even if you haven't conquered, even if you haven't won, right? Like even if you aren't the strongest physically, what strength means. There's so many beautiful things that we can unpack in this topic here too, and I thought that was amazing.
I loved it.
Yeah.
And now we're at the end, but I don't know if you guys know this. This story continues in comic book form.
No way.
Yes. And so there's actually several stories, but the one that I want to talk about is really about Zuko finding his mom. And so it gives a little context to why his dad
That's
was
when they end the
such a
show,
dick.
right? So yeah, keep going.
So they've
Sorry.
already ended the show. But what you find out is that Zuko's mom was in love with someone else, but then got betrothed to Ozai. And Ozai, of course, was a piece of work. But at this point, she has her children. She has Zuko. She has Azula. But she just feels so constricted by Ozai. And so she tries to set it up to where Ozai will leave her. So she ends up forging letters from her past lover to try and be like, hey, Zuko is your kid. She's doing that because she thinks, hey, if I can get quote unquote dishonored, he'll leave me and I can have my kids and be like out of his grasp. And it backfires because, of course, he finds them as it was intended. He's like, look, if you want me to treat our son like he's not our son, fine, I will. And that kind of puts in that whole perspective of this is why he's been such a dick to his son, is because he is still mad at his wife for even pretending or insinuating that Zuko wasn't his.
Even though her intentions were
to get away.
Super pure, too. It's just like, I want to protect my children. It was a backfire.
Well, the only way I
right?
can get away from him is if he wants to leave me. And the only way I can make him leave me is if I can make it seem like I betrayed his trust.
It sucks to be put in that position.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, this is a really wonderful storyline of we have to lean into our own sense of trust, authenticity. What is it that we know is important to us in our own sense of values, and really having to stand strong to that, right? That's very difficult. It's very vulnerable in finding people who are going to support us in that narrative and that voice that we are wanting to assert, especially as we figure out who we are throughout life and developmental stages.
Yeah.
So that's amazing that it brings it back to the mom story. I had no idea.
It even goes even further. So apparently when she got banished, she and her former lover found each other again. And they ended up going to a spirit that changed their face. He wasn't like Ko the face stealer. It was some other spirit that changed their whole look so that they could then spend life. And they have kids together. So they were able to like live a life outside of the Fire Lord without anyone knowing who they were. And when like he finally finds her, like it's one of those things where she just holds him, and it's like, look, you are still my son. And then he kind of like has his family back again. At the same point, while he's struggling with leading the Fire Nation, he tries to get advice from his father because he feels like he's still ill prepared to run this nation. And it kind of causes a conflict between him and May, who was like, you're going to this genocidal maniac, but he still couldn't let go of his father because he still thinks maybe we can get together again. And I think maybe it's because he got connected with his mom again. He had that hope.
And we didn't talk too much about grief today.
No.
But
You
I
want
think, well, that just came up for me, right? Like, couldn't let go of this hope for what he thought his father could be. Or I think there's a lot of grief and loss of like the idea of who we hope people can be and they may not be able to, and what that means for acceptance. So we could talk all day about this topic too, but I think at the end of the day, I just want listeners to know, if you've watched this series, if you haven't, like, there's so much power in watching it as an adult and thinking about what if we work through in our own struggles, and what if we work through in our relationships and our ownership of voice. Like, there's so much power to this, and who would have thunk, like, I did not know I would go through such a meaningful journey watching these episodes as I did. And it's really incredible writing. And we were speaking earlier even that, like, I don't know, there's some bias, but like maybe shows, especially children's shows and animated shows these days, don't have the same kind of character development and meaning that the richness has. Ties, looking like he's thinking.
Well, because there's the show Bluey, and if you have kids, you know the show.
So that has a lot of social emotional development.
Well, it's not so much I feel like they develop, it's that they showcase us so other people can develop.
They do.
But
There's
it's the same way,
skills.
yes.
There's skills and ideas, and I think those ideas are acceptance, or assertion of voice, are trust in self. Like, these are all themes that I was thinking about when I was watching this show too.
And one theme
Sean,
you did speak on was like that support system.
Yeah.
And how important that really was, I think, for Zuko going through his own hero's journey. While the show might be about Aang and his journey, it really does showcase like that's how important that core support system is for each character, and especially Zuko.
Yeah, we really didn't talk too much about Zuko's like friend development, but when the Katara, Zuko sacrifices himself by receiving the lightning bolt.
Oh yeah, at the end,
right?
where he takes Azula's lightning bolt to save Katara.
And so he is saying, like, this life, this relationship is so important to me beyond who I am.
Shit, we can even take it further.
Yeah.
So there was an episode, it wasn't part of your homework, so you didn't miss it. I think this should be the last point we make before we wrap up, because I know we're going pretty long.
It's been 17 days.
It's been 6 weeks since you
See,
looked at me.
this is one of the things I didn't say earlier. I knew Ty would ruin it.
600 minutes. How do
So
Sean knows who
Anytime
he
I say
chose.
it's been, Ty's like,
I'm a bare naked lady.
Sean knows who he chose as his friends.
So
My name is Ty, and I'm a bare naked lady.
Speaking of secure attachment, it's here.
So going back, there is a point where Zuko has joined the gang, as it's formally called. And so Katara, I don't know if you knew this, Katara lost her mom to the Fire Nation. So she has a deep-rooted trauma and hatred of the Fire Nation. So she has a point where she's like, I need to know what happened to my mom. And so she finds out that there was a guy who ended up like taking her on the boat that ended up killing her. And she finds where he is thanks to Zuko. So Zuko goes with her on this quest of revenge.
Wow.
And like he's sitting there telling her, is like, look, I understand this quest for revenge because I've been on it. So I support you in this, but also know there's healing. And like she gets to the point where she literally traps the guy. The guy ended up being like a bum. He's kind of like Howard from Big Bang Theory, where he's basically working for his overbearing mom,
Why would you
working
watch
on a
that show?
farm. Because it's
fine.
Focus.
Regardless.
we still love you,
Thank
and
you.
you are our friend, and we will be your support system through
Thank
that
you.
show.
But she basically is getting ready to impale this motherfucker with so many ice needles. And she doesn't. She finally just lets it rain. And like Zuko's there for her and holds her. So there's like this beautiful moment where he's realizing revenge won't do shit. But I understand I can't tell you not to pursue it because I pursued it myself. And he lets her go through those emotions before she's finally able to release and grieve.
Yeah. So as we're coming to our close, if I may add, like, I think, goodness, we've talked so much about relationships, about trauma, about moving through self-trust. And I think finding community and relationships that really help us feel grounded and that we can safely voice who we are and support the directions we're wanting to go in. And I think at the end of the day, like, I'm just wanting to send this message to our listeners of, I'm so hoping that we can get through that place of trauma healing. Does not mean like, oh, I'm fine and totally okay with everything that happened. It means I have made sense of this and leaned into the voice that I need and the direction that I'm choosing to go in life. And may I find people who support me in that. And I think that I see that, of course, in this room, because I love the two of you, and also within the show and the character development. And it sounds like there are still episodes I need to watch because there's so much complexity within family systems. And I think I just want to really message to everyone that even if our family system does not look the way that society tells us it's supposed to look, or that we don't receive unconditional love, like, we are still worthy of it. And we are still worthy of moving through our healing processes. And that's a message I really just want to send to humans today as we're all out there doing the best we can.
So if you're not humans, go fuck yourself.
As we are moving through the best we can is what I was trying to say, Ty. Jeez Louise. Okay. Love you guys. Thank you.
What a plot twist. Well, thank you, Leia.
We're so glad you're here. Thank you.
I love being here. Truly.
If anyone wanted to get in touch with you,
oh yeah,
what would be the best way to do that?
Well, since I was last actually on the show, like, I have expanded, I suppose, into Change Well Psych in Charlotte, North Carolina. Also, we serve therapy and mental health services throughout 40 plus states throughout the U.S., and we can consult and help individuals. But Change Well Psych and Warmly Dr. Leia is still my Instagram.
And so it's changewellpsych.com?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, we have a beautiful team. Very trauma-informed, LGBT advocacy, identity affirming. Love our team. And it's a privilege to work with them and to just speak shenanigans and theory with all of you today.
Shenanigans and theory.
Well, there's no other theory to shenanigan in than to do our final bottoms up.
I think we toast to Kevin too.
Kevin too.
May you burn in hell.
May we all have working fire extinguishers. Love you. Bye.
You're like,
if y'all gonna burn me like that, fine.
by the way, we're still recording. I didn't see you hit the stop button, so I can still say things.
I thought I had a great idea, but fuck y'all. I love y'all.
I see you riding around town with I fuck you.